Best stock on Josh Brown's radar. What is it?
I want to shout out Carvana. So I'm not taking this trade, but this hit our list of the best stocks in the market, and I think it's worth understanding what's happening here. We had a surprise uptick in the Manheim Index, which tracks used car prices. It's probably not a great thing that that's now heading in the wrong direction, but be that as it may, Carvana is probably the most obvious beneficiary of that. The stock's up 6% today. We wrote it up for the best stocks in the market list on CNBC Pro yesterday morning. They reported on May 7th. They absolutely smashed their numbers. Revenue up 38%. Net income was up 6x from 49 million to 373 million year over year. The stock's working in a major way. I know it's been controversial in the past, but it's on the list, and we chose to write about it.
All right. Again, CNBC Pro, if you sign up, you can get access to Josh's group of the best stocks. So another stock up nicely today is Toast. Last I saw, it was up 5%. We can see the current move here. Our story is that you bought more. Why?
Yeah, so this is an average up. I've been involved in the stock for a while, and I bought the name right before the numbers because I like when you see strength going into the numbers, and this thing was trading toward the high end of its range. Now, obviously, it's had an explosive move since. I'm going to hold on to it. Record growth in Q1, 6,000 net new locations. They announced a huge enterprise deal with Hilton and the Applebee's chain to add on to what they're already doing for Marriott. ARR, which is the only number that matters, up 31% year over year to 1.7 billion. That's recurring revenue. They can build upon that. Gross payment volumes were up huge. Net income up huge. 56 million versus a loss of 83 million last year. There were a lot of analysts who thought this company would never get to profitability. Now they're there, and I think the stock looks great. So I'm not trading. I'm sticking with my position.
Okay. All right. Welcome back. WTI on the move again. It's up 3%, 64 bucks. So crude's been moving higher way. So I got calls today on Chevron, EOG, and Exxon. Chevron downgraded, EOG price target cut, Exxon price target cut, and you bought the XLE.
I did.
You playing for a move even higher from here?
Yes, I am. So I bought it on Friday, and the reason I bought it was, number one, stocks have been depressed because obviously commodities have been depressed. It had started to move up. My thinking was if we went into the weekend and got some, made some headway with China, then people would think better about their economy, about our economy, and oil prices would continue to move. I thought about buying one of the majors, but when I looked at the yield on the XLE, which is 3.5% at the time, I said, why not do that and diversify myself? So I'm there, and I like the play to continue moving. I think I can get another 20% out of it or so.
Okay. And the ITA, that's the ETF that I teased, hitting an all-time high this morning. That's back to 06. Sixth straight weekly gain. That's the longest since last October. Jimmy, you've got Lockheed. What about this space?
I think this is a space to be in. I will note that some of the aerospace companies are down, perhaps on the idea that there's going to be peace in the Middle East, which I love. However, the order book for most of these companies is very strong. I think about Lockheed Martin in particular. I think about whether it was 6 months ago, 5 months ago, that Elon Musk tweeted the F-35 is a stupid, whatever he described it, a stupid vehicle. Fact of the matter is it's the best airplane in the sky right now. The U.S. is ordering plenty of it. So is international air forces. There's a great missile business at Lockheed Martin. I love the idea of peace, but you've got to prepare for war to keep that peace.
You know, I own FTAI in the space.
Oh, right. You added to that recently, didn't you?
I did, and the CEO bought a bunch of stock, a million or more of stock, and that stock, Jefferies has a target of about 200. I think you can get a good part of the way there. It's equipment leasing, engine leasing, and they just picked up $2.5 billion credit line, which will drive those earnings. It's going to keep moving.
Okay. On your finals, what?
Uber, my biggest position. It is now the third best performing name in the S&P, up 51% year to date. New record high right now. Looks incredible.
All right. Thank you. Farmer Jim, what do you got?
Alphabet. I still think this is undervalued. I think too much of the competitive threat is priced in at this price.
Okay. Ames?
Santander, also up about 60% year to date, still trading at less than 8 times earnings.
Okay, and that must be you with Leidos again.
Leidos, and here's the reason. Look, it's been pretty quiet with the government contractors, Booz Allen, et cetera, and at this point, you got to believe that they're working something out with the government, and it's going to be better than expected.
Thank you. See you on the belt.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to BlueCloud Trading once again. This is the second video where we're going to take a look at some of the stocks that they talked about on the halftime report. Josh Brown, we saw Steve Weiss, we saw a few other characters, and here's a list of the stocks that they talked about. There's 9 stocks and a couple of ETFs like the ITA, XLE. We'll look at those. In the prior video, I covered the indices, okay? So if you want to check that out, look at the prior video. In this video, we're going to cover these stocks. We're also going to take a look at the Fab 7 stocks, and we're going to take a look at some of the strongest sectors within that, within this list here, this watch list that I have, okay? So first, let's get started with Carvana. Carvana, CVNA is a ticker symbol. Okay, what's going on with Carvana? Well, it just reached a target area of 292.84. Now, how do I come about this level, and why is that important? All you got to do is go back in time a little bit. Right there, that's the prior high right there. It goes back to February 21st. And what happened in the past, price reached that level and lost its mojo, right? And dropped. And now it's retesting that 292.84. And guess what? Today, something really fun happened. It actually closed above that 292.84 at 293.06. It's not a huge breakout, though. And so that's also something that you should always pay attention to. You want to see that candle, it's the closing price, be a little bit more, not show a wick on the top like it is right there. The volume down below here, you'll see today, this week, for example, is a little bit lower than the prior week so far. Let's look at the daily time frame for a little bit more context here. So here's the daily. You can see that's the area right there where price had reached the level back, that again, February 18th and February 20th. So yeah, what's interesting, guys, is once you can see the reversal candles that formed right there, and then boom, it just dropped. Now, it's made a recovery, but look at that. That little wick, what it does is it represents selling that took place at the end of the day. I'm going to show you something. Right now, we're looking at a daily time frame. Let's look at the 5-minute. There. Okay. So you can see here, here we are on May 13th. Price moved up and is dropping. Towards the end of the day, in the afternoon, you could say around maybe, I don't know, somewhere around 2 p.m. or so, you can see that the price dropped about 1.2%, and it's still declining. So tomorrow, what I'd be watching is the highs and lows of that specific candle. Where is it going to end up? Well, if it can get above this area, above the high there, I could certainly see a continuation here to the upside. As you can see down below here, the ADX, the white line, is still moving up. That's the momentum indicator that shows us the momentum is strengthening when it's moving up. And the green line, which is the positive DI9, is above the negative DI9. So we have a nice strong uptrend with Carvana right now. How about ITA? That's the Aerospace and Defense Index Fund. It's an ETF. Weekly chart. All right. It looks pretty good with the Ichimoku. The only problem is on the weekly chart, this candle is forming, but remember, we won't know what that looks like exactly until Friday, right? We're currently on Tuesday. So this candle is still forming. It's in the process of forming. So here's a daily chart. And we've got a couple of reversal candles here, but price is in fact moving up. I don't like what happened here. This is kind of what they call a gravestone type candle. If you guys have never heard of that, I'll show you what that looks like. Just pop up our candle reference sheet here. And let's zoom in on that for a moment. Kind of looks a little bit like this. And you see the wick on the top and a kind of almost like a flat type body, right, of the candlestick. And that is a bearish single candle pattern. So, it is, it's slightly thicker than a very thin candle, but it is a bearish candle nonetheless. And after that's following these other two negative, like a hammer candle or hanging man, they call this one. That's also a reversal candle. So we're forming a lot more reversal candles, but price is in fact still moving up on the daily. Here's a weekly chart. Okay, so I'd be a little cautious here. Maybe start taking profits soon. If it gets too far away from the Tenkan-sen, you can see the expansion also that's taking place between the Tenkan-sen, that's the green line, and the red line. And that's a pretty vast breakdown. If price gets and closes under the Tenkan-sen, I would certainly take profits for sure, okay? SAN is Banco Santander. That's a global bank, financial services sector. And here's the daily chart. It just today, it's a nice chart. It just today broke above that little high right there. So that's bullish. Okay, we got what's called a ascending triangle pattern right there. And when you see something like that, that tends to lead to a continuation. You'll also notice down below, we've got ourselves a nice little volume increase there, right? From yesterday, we've got about a little bit more volume there. ADX is still moving up. Positive DI is above the negative DI. That's very good stuff. That's the daily chart. And let's look at the weekly. There's a weekly chart. So I do like this one. Where might it find some resistance? Let's take a look right here. Ooh, I didn't catch that earlier. Let me zoom in on this on a monthly chart. Let's take a look. And let's go ahead and find the specific dollar amount. It is 757. Okay, so let's throw that in there. Let's color this purple to represent the monthly. Now these candlesticks represent a month, each one of them. These are the years. 2018 is the last time that we reached that level. We're now, okay, here we are, May 13th, 2025, and we're at the same level that we were at back in 2018. So it's emerged on the monthly chart above the Ichimoku cloud. Remember what I said before, it's never really a good idea to be buying stocks when price is under the Ichimoku cloud. You can see that big decline. Measure, I mean, you can take a look right here, where it got into the cloud right there, for example. If you measure that move, it's about an 85.96% drop. Are you ready for this, guys? Look at this little box here. There's a box that's going to populate here. I want you to take a look at something. So we'll say from right here when it got entered the cloud, and we'll measure, we'll get our measuring tool here, and we reach that level right there, that low, 82% drop in 13.9 years. Look at the bottom of that box to the left. See, it says 13.9 years. That's 167 months. And it dropped 82.4%. Not good. Imagine having your money tied in there for that long. That's why it's never a good idea to be buying stocks when price is under the cloud. You're taking a gamble. Here's a weekly chart. So now it emerged above the Ichimoku cloud on the weekly chart back here in 2023. And since that point, it has moved up approximately 120%. So that's a really nice move up. That's the weekly chart. Here's the daily. So now we're reaching that monthly level of resistance. And so look where it stopped. It closed at 757 today. Okay, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? What do you do in a situation like this? Well, I'd be monitoring this thing really closely at this point because it's reached a target. But the thing is, it does have the potential of breaking through that level. And if it breaks through, for example, tomorrow, you can use that 757 as a support level once it breaks through. Remember, what used to be resistance when price is underneath becomes a level of support. So you can utilize that level. And if you see price dropping back under, you might want to take your, maybe put a stop or something like that under there. TOST is toast, and this one is interesting too. This was one of the stocks Josh Brown likes a lot, and it has moved up. Here's a weekly chart. So we are retesting the levels where it was back November 29th of 2024. So, we're basically the same price, 43.96. And guess what? It looks like, we're under that 44.12 level. So we're just under it. And that's the weekly chart. Let's look at the daily. You can see that reversal candle that just formed right there. Another spinning top. So this is a target place. A lot of I think what happened was a lot of profit taking took place here. If we look at a 5-minute again, you can see that, you know, towards, this is the 13th, right? You can see once it reached that level there, it was selling pretty much the rest of the day. And it dropped about 3% or so from that high. So I would be cautious here with TOST. Look at it. It's under the cloud in the 5-minute. And wait for it. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day, maybe later in the week, price will close on one of those days above that 44.12. And then once again, you can use that as a support level. Here's Uber. This is a different story. Let's look at the weekly chart on this one. So last week it closed under the 87.08. And yes, this candle hasn't formed 100% yet. So by the end of the week, it could potentially drop and get back under that 87 level. However, right now things are looking pretty bullish. Here's the daily chart. Yesterday on Monday, May 12th, it popped through that 87 level. It happened on high volume. So that's a confirmation right there. See that higher volume there on that breakout? And then we've got a continuation of volume, more buying taking place here, pushing it further, up 4.11% today. So Uber looks good to me. I'm liking Uber. Again, you can use that 87 as a support level. And look, I mean, we've never reached these levels with Uber before. This is all new territory here. Okay, this is a monthly chart that I'm showing you. You can see from 2019, from its inception, it's moved up to 124.29%. Okay, so that's interesting. And we're at 91.72 right now. So I like it. It's starting to show some promise. How about Leidos? Steve Weiss loves this stock. He talks about it almost in every show. Let's look at the weekly chart first. It's currently showing a little bit of strength from these lows from 123.22. It's moved up approximately 24.56%, but it is inside the cloud. It's under that 162.30 level. I wouldn't be taking the gamble of jumping into this based on the weekly chart. Chiku span here, the white line is still under the candle. I'd stay out of that. LMT, Lockheed Martin, also still under the Ichimoku cloud, so I'd stay out of that one on the weekly. You can see. So it doesn't make sense to even consider it on a daily based on my approach of trading. UNH, you heard the news today. Earlier I talked about it in the prior video. The CEO is no longer there, and for personal reasons, he quit. And I don't know exactly the whole story there, but basically you can see here for multiple weeks now, this stock has been punished, right? It broke through the Ichimoku cloud, but remember, we didn't have all of the elements here. Let me just show you something. We didn't have all of the elements telling us that we should take a long position in UNH. Just because it breaks through the Ichimoku cloud doesn't mean that's the reason to get in. You'll notice that the Tenkin's in the green line, the faster moving average, was still under the Kijinsen, right? And sometimes it can take a little time for that green line to cross over. But then what you can see here is the very next week, price gapped down and dropped, creating an bearish engulfing pattern. That's a very bearish pattern. I'll show you what that looks like, guys. It's a double candle pattern, and it looks like this right here. You get that small bullish candle followed by a red candle that engulfs it, the body. And so that's what we have right here. And then it just continued to drop. And from that high right there, it's dropped about 47.79%. Yikes. And this is a weekly chart we're looking at. This was back on April 17th of 2025. So UNH, look at it. It's just dropping like a knife. XLE is energy. Energy is not looking particularly great because it still is under the Ichimoku cloud on the weekly chart. We've got a series of lower highs and lower lows. You can see this high is lower than the prior one. So we've got a decline right there. We've got a lower low here from this one. So it's in a downward channel basically, okay? And not a good idea to jump in. All right, let's take a look at, and look, I mean, yeah, you can look at the daily time frame. And yes, it's starting to show a little bit of strength, but it's still, even on the daily, it's still under the Ichimoku cloud. But we are getting some signs here that it might potentially break through soon. Okay, Fab 7 stocks. Let's look at those real quick. Weekly chart, start off with Microsoft. Okay, it's reaching a level of resistance right now. I've got these levels here, 448, okay, 456. And I wouldn't be jumping in here because you can see those prior levels. That's a weekly chart. Here's a daily. All right. NVIDIA broke through that trend line. Ooh, that's important. Let's look at the this weekly extended trend line now. I took that low and drew this trend line that you see right there. And price was hovering under there for like a little while. Got under, it's coming back. Now it's breaking through. It was up 5.63%. Here's the daily chart. So it's starting to show some strength. But again, on the weekly chart, remember what I mentioned before is when you have that faster moving average under the red line, the slower one, you know it's not 100%. Here's another here's another thing. I don't know if it's cool, but here's something that you should really pay attention to also is always look at the volume down here. This shows how many trades are being placed each. In this case, we're looking at a weekly chart each week. Notice how the trades in NVIDIA has been declining week after week after week. So as price has been moving up, there's less and less volume. What that tells me is it's kind of losing its, buying power there. It might start to stall soon. I don't know. I just don't see. We need to see a confirmation, maybe a volume bar here on 1 week popping through. So that's what I'd be watching. How about Google? Google is still under the Ichimoku cloud, so I wouldn't be touching that one yet. It is still in a decline. Okay. And let's look at the daily time frame on Google. There it is. Doesn't look really that great. Tesla. Wow, interesting. On the daily chart, Tesla broke through the Ichimoku cloud. Senko span A crossed above Senko span B. Personally, I'm not exactly sure why this stock is doing well. I mean, the fundamentals are not that particularly interesting. There's less and less sales taking place across the world, unless there are other segments of Tesla that are doing really well. But the auto sales are not doing that great, so I'm not sure exactly why this is happening. Here's the weekly chart. It's still under the Kijun-sen. Tenkan-sen is still under Kijun-sen, so yeah, that's where that is. And look, very similarly with the volume, the volume is declining right there.